Would you be the jerk for telling your own siblings you don't want your kids looking up to them? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for refusing to dress my twins identically for the family picture? I'm the mother of 1-year-old identical twin girls. I've never liked the idea of dressing them identically because while they are twins, they aren't the same child. So whenever I'm given matching outfits, I mix and match them to make them look different or rotate who wears what. I've always felt it's important they be allowed their own sense of self and not have twin pushed on them as a major part of their identity. Family pictures are coming up soon for my great-grandmother's 80th birthday. We want to commemorate this with pictures, and my mother has booked professional photographers for this. The dress code is formal. I've bought one daughter a sparkly purple dress. She's like a little magpie, anything sparkly and she is all over it. My other daughter, I've bought a green dress with flowers on it as she loves flowers. I plan to do one daughter's hair in pigtails and the other will have a hairband. My mother called me and asked me to dress them alike as it'll look cute for the picture. I told her she knows how I feel about that and that we won't be doing that. I told her I'd even bought dresses already. She offered to buy them new matching dresses, but I refused. She told me I was being ridiculous and it was only one picture and wouldn't kill them. When I asked if she'd bought my brother's daughters, who are 11 and 7, matching dresses, she said no. Why would she do that? Which led to me asking her why my children should dress alike then. Which, of course, the answer was them being identical twins. This led to a rather heated conversation, and I told my mother that they are my daughters and it's my call. All she needs to be concerned about is them being presentable and matching the dress code. She told me I'm being selfish here and it won't matter, pointing out how lots of twins like to dress alike. I told her that if they wish to dress alike one day, I'd not stop them, but till then, this is what I was doing. My brother has since called me and asked me to just do it, that our mother is stressed out and how I can change the girls out of it after the picture, and that it's only a picture and it would keep the peace. I know it's only a picture, but it just sits wrong with me. Is it really jerkish of me to not bend on this? I completely respect OP's opinion and stance here, and ultimately it is OP's call. I suppose maybe you could make the argument that they are 1-year-olds, so it's not like they're actually going to imprint on any of this. That said, OP wants to set a principle and stick to it. And ultimately, this is the starting point for establishing that boundary and principle with the extended family too. This story kind of makes me think back to grade school and high school, where whenever I saw twins, it almost always seemed like they were wearing the same thing. And especially when it came to like haircuts, they would have like the same thing, or they would have like mirrored haircuts. This story really makes me wonder, is it something that those twins actually wanted, or was it something that was kind of perpetuated upon them? Maybe even to the point where they thought this is how they have to live their life. Disgruntled Fairy commented, "Not the jerk. The kids are yours and ultimately their clothing choices are yours. If your mom wants a photo shoot, she has to negotiate with you regarding how the kids are dressed. You have laid out your limits and she can either agree or not have the photos of the kids done. Those are her options." I'm glad you're not really indulging the twin thing. There have been some really sad and troubling posts here about families that went way too far on it. OP responded saying, "I went to school with a pair of twin boys and it always made me uncomfortable to see them being forced to dress alike, down to having the same haircut. So when I had twins, I remembered them and it shaped my decision." Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for following my niece and leaving my brother's house after she unloaded on my brother and sister-in-law? This is something that happened only a few days ago. My niece Sierra, 24-year-old female, had a baby 2.5 weeks ago. She and her partner decided they didn't want anyone at the hospital and would handle visits when things settled a bit. Her dad and stepmom offered to host any family on her paternal side she wanted to have meet the baby, and she agreed and I was invited. During the visit, my brother was holding Sierra's baby and he told sister-in-law, who is step-grandma, that their first grandchild looks just like her and that Sierra's child was a mini sister-in-law. Sierra told her dad not to say that. He told her it was true and she should be proud. Sister-in-law asked her why that offends her so much. After all, she is grandma and these things can happen. Sierra said she's a stepmom, a step-grandma. She is not biologically related to her or her child, and both of them need to accept that and stop trying to force this idea that they, Sierra, her child, but also Sierra's full siblings, look like sister-in-law. My brother told her to calm down and stop acting hormonal, and like there's something wrong with finding familiar features in family. Sierra took her baby off my brother and passed the baby to her partner. Then she told them sister-in-law is not her real family, is not her real mom, is not who she looks like. She told them she has always looked just like her mom and so does her baby. She told them she had warned them they were going to stop acting like sister-in-law was her actual mom and the actual grandma or she would walk. And she did. She told them she was done. I followed Sierra out, which angered my brother and sister-in-law. I soothed Sierra and reassured her that we all hadn't forgotten her mom. Once I got home, I realized the anger my brother and sister-in-law held toward me for leaving too because I had several texts. They told me I had defended Sierra being unreasonably nasty to them, and especially to sister-in-law, and I should have stayed to support them instead of Sierra. For those who will ask for background, my brother was widowed young. Sierra was the oldest at 7, her siblings were 4 and 2. My brother remarried 18 months after his first wife died. He had known sister-in-law 6 months at the time. It was very fast for Sierra, but the marriage also started because my brother wanted the kids to have a mom, which is something Sierra never liked, and she's never cared for sister-in-law, but learned to tolerate her over time. But my brother and sister-in-law do like to talk as though sister-in-law birthed the 3 original kids, which I mentioned before wasn't right because their mom still deserves to be recognized. I was ignored, however, and to clarify what I meant by that, sister-in-law and my brother will say the kids look just like sister-in-law when all 3 favor their mom heavily, or they'll claim they have saved for the kids since birth. They also describe Sierra as their firstborn child. Comments of that nature are very common from them. Am I the jerk? I think OP's definitely not the jerk. I don't think a single person here is willing to even entertain Sierra's perspective. Well, besides OP, obviously. TopAd7154 commented, "Not the jerk. Your brother is, to be honest. I'm an auntie and my loyalty is always 100% to my niece and nephew. Sierra's well-being is paramount here. Your sister-in-law and brother are overstepping. Sierra is probably really missing her mother now more than ever. It was grossly insensitive and just plain cruel." OP responded saying, "She told me that she is. It makes her more aware of everything her mom went through, and then for some other woman to come and take her place, it really brought a lot of things back. Even just wondering how her dad could try to slot in someone else the way he did. I feel so bad for her because she set her boundaries and they didn't respect them." Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to bring my ex's other children along on days out with our 2 sons? I, 32-year-old male, have 2 sons, Jamie, 11-year-old male, and Jaden, 10-year-old male. Their mother and I were high school sweethearts who had the boys before we finished college. We had planned to get married, but then I found out my ex was cheating on me and I broke up with her. Jaden was 14 months old at the time. We split custody, and I paid child support for the first 18 months post-breakup, and costs were simply split with nobody giving anyone extra. My ex had another son 2 years after we broke up. The father was not in the picture. She told me that he was the guy she cheated on me with and that she realized he was a piece of crap, etc., and asked if I would consider adopting her son and raising him as my own alongside our boys. I told her I wasn't going to do that. We ended up arguing about this for so long that she had time to get into another relationship and move this man in. So I told her that he should be a father figure to her son since they planned on building a life together. Within a year, that guy was gone and she had a daughter he fathered. I continued being a dad to my sons only. I didn't interact with her other 2 children, but I would see them from a distance during exchanges. She asked me to adopt both her additional children, stating they needed a father. I told her to go and find their fathers then. She eased up when she met her husband. I thought maybe it was finally the end of her trying to make me responsible for her other children. She has a child with her husband now too, so 5 in total in her household when our boys are included, but it has not lasted. My ex has admitted her husband isn't involved in the lives of her other children and they're still missing out on having a father. So she asked me to include her 3 other children, and that does include the child she has with her husband, in days out I have with my sons. She said especially during summer and around Christmas when I take them to do fun holiday-themed activities, it's not something she can give her other children, and she wants them to experience these things also. She finds out when I do these things with my boys because she'll quiz them about their time with me, and each time she gets angry. But when the boys were with her 2 weeks ago, she got extra ticked. She had mentioned to me that her son, the oldest of her other 3 kids, didn't get much for his birthday and she had wanted to make it up to him. That was meant to mean me. So when she heard our boys and I had visited an amusement park around his birthday, she blew a fuse and asked me how I can be such a jerk to children. She told me I should be doing better as a father. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here. I think the situation is very analogous to situations where, let's say one parent passed away unfortunately, the other parent remarries, has more kids, and then expects the grandparents of the widowed kids to, for some reason, care for the other kids that have no relation to them. Like, I'm sorry, I mean, it definitely pulls at your heartstrings that these other kids don't have fathers who will take them and give them experiences places. But that doesn't mean OP has to be the one to do it because they're doing it for their kid. B. Mandalore Tamad commented, "That is a special kind of crazy." You know what would have fixed all her problems? Not cheating on you. Yeah, all her children would have a dad. No one's playing favorites. Nobody's missing out on birthdays or holidays because you're actually a good father to your children. It's amazing she has the absolute gall to ask you to take in her other kids. How do you even go about this? I know I cheated on you, but my other children... Look, my freaking brood of children don't have dads, so it would be great if you just adopted all of them. Heck no, you're not the jerk. OP responded saying, "You know, one of the things that has bothered me the most by her asking is the fact that she's now married. She has chosen someone to marry and have another child with, and she chose someone who does not want to fill his fatherly role to her two other fatherless children. Before that, with her father's daughter, she chose another man who apparently didn't want to be a fatherly figure to her fatherless son. In all of this, she has been in 2 serious relationships, serious enough to move in, but she still wanted me to play this role for kids who are not mine, while she could just find someone who accepts and loves her kids." This next story is, am I the jerk for making my in-laws stay in a hotel after they surprised us on our family vacation? I, 37-year-old female, took a beach vacation with my husband, 40-year-old male, and our 3 kids, 4, 2, and 3 months old. We also invited his sister, husband, and 2 kids, 4 and 3, as we had a detached bedroom from the main house, and we genuinely like hanging out with them. I told her we wanted to keep it small this year since we have a new baby. I'm pretty fresh postpartum, and I didn't want it to be too stressful. While we were at the beach, we see my mother-in-law, father-in-law, stepson, 20, and his girlfriend pull up. This is a 3-hour drive from where we live. They came to surprise us at the beach since we haven't seen my stepson in 2 months. My sister-in-law said they've been planning this for weeks and she gave them the mile marker. This was a cool surprise, but afterwards they expected to stay with us in our 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom rental house with no real doors, only sliding doors. They had no plans for lodging or eating, so we got to work to make dinner, which was fine because I had packed extra food. Due to space constraints, I put the baby down for a nap in the restroom. We had 2 pack-and-plays in there. When I went to check on him a little later, my stepson and his girlfriend were in the transparent glass shower together, steps away from my 3-month-old baby. I went back to the kitchen and told sister-in-law they cannot stay with us. My husband told them they could because he's out of touch with what that would actually mean. 6 adults, 2 toddlers, sharing 1 restroom where 2 babies are sleeping. I told her what I just saw with stepson and girlfriend in the shower, again reminding her it's too many people going in and out of the restroom with 2 kids asleep in there. She understood and started looking up hotels. My stepson's girlfriend was already scoping out the couch, and she could have slept there, but after wrestling 2 babies to sleep in the restroom and my 4-year-old to sleep in the actual bed, the couch was the only place I could sit and have a glass of wine at the end of the night in peace. After getting a hotel room, they stayed at the beach house until midnight playing poker on the patio and shouting. My husband asked his dad to please be quiet since the kids were sleeping, and father-in-law loudly shouted, "Shut up," and kept playing. This has since caused major conflict with my husband as he believes that we should have just let 4 additional people stay since they are family. We paid for half the hotel room and my sister-in-law paid for the other half. For context, we've been to the beach one other time with my sister-in-law last year, but have never been with my mother-in-law and father-in-law. My stepson has been gone for 2 months but will be in town the next 3 weeks, so it's not like we wouldn't have seen him the next day when we returned. I understand they wanted this to be a fun surprise, but no one considered how this would impact us as a family traveling with 3 small children in a relatively small beach house. Am I the jerk for making my in-laws stay in a hotel after they surprised us on our family vacation? OP is wholeheartedly not the jerk here. They should have known and expected there's a possibility that, hey, showing up with X amount of adults here is going to be cramping their party. I mean, just in general, when somebody's on a trip, it's not a good idea to just pop up and surprise them. I feel like a good comparison would be like Homer Simpson going on vacation and then finding out that, surprise, Ned Flanders also has planned to come along and surprise them on the trip. It's one of those things where it's like you're happy to see them, but you're not happy to house them, feed them, give them a bathroom, a shower to redacted in. Unhappy Prune 9914 commented, "Not the jerk. No way, this is so rude and really stressful. You need to put an end to this all now. My aunt, uncle, and cousins did this to my parents for years. They would show up with their family of 5 for Thanksgiving as a surprise, and my mom would scramble to get extra food. American for the cousins and our ethnic food for the parents. It was a nightmare, but they never said anything because it was awkward and it went on for 30 years. Say no now or all your future vacations will be ruined." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not buying my fiance a second wedding dress that's more than 50% the total budget? My, female 49, fiance, female 32, wants me to buy her a new wedding dress that's over 50% the total wedding budget after I already bought her an $8,600 dress. I'm marrying the love of my life who is a member of a Native American tribe and lives on a reservation in my city. I was involved with this tribe before I met her, buying an older woman a mobile home to put on her land when her daughter went to prison, leaving her 3 grandkids to raise when she was living in a 15-foot travel trailer. She managed to get the kids out of foster care due to this. This greased the wheels to get the council to approve us having our wedding on the reservation. I'm paying for everything and have a $60,000 budget. There will be traditional dancers, drummers, and a traditional feast all catered by women on the reservation. We have an 80-person guest list. The only people coming on my side is my mother and my adult nephew. Yes, I'm spreading my money around on the reservation, trying not to be obnoxious about it. Like I said, I've seen the poverty many of them go through, and I love that my wedding is bringing money there. My fiance said she dreamed of her wedding since she was a little girl. I couldn't care less about weddings, to be honest, so I've let her be the only bride. I'm going to wear a black gown with tuxedo elements on top to kind of stand in as a groom. This way, all the attention will be on her. My only rule was that the budget was $60,000 firm, not a penny more, and I hired a wedding planner she had to work with to get everything within that budget. She went out with her girlfriends and decided on a beautiful $8,600 dress. She loved it. It was purchased and fitted great. It's 3 months until the wedding. We're doing November because it's way too hot to have a summer wedding out here. She was continuing to get things ready with the tribe and the planner. One of the tribal elders brought up her dress. He said she should wear a traditional tribal gown made by one of their artisans. She sat me down to tell me something serious and explained that she couldn't wear the gown she bought. She needed a traditional tribal gown. I said to get a quote from the artisan and maybe we could get a partial return and or sell the other gown to cover it. The artisan's price? $33,000. It's going to be covered with beadwork and she needs to get started now. I said, well, it's a good thing we already have a gown. She said she would not humiliate herself and dishonor her tribe by wearing the wrong gown. I said I can't approve this cost. It would throw the budget out the window. She says I have millions of dollars and this is our wedding and I'm being ridiculous. Yes, I have money. I live off 4% as someone semi-retired. I have this money because I keep to the budgets I set. Now she's not talking to me except to remind me every day that if the artisan doesn't start now, she won't have a dress. I don't know what to do. Am I being the jerk here? Now, honestly, I have no clue if this is a normal price or not, or if they're just trying to milk every penny they can from OP. But I think it's pretty clear here, OP set a budget and this is a ridiculously huge expense that, even if it was in the budget, is almost inexcusable. $33,000 on a dress? Forget beadwork, that thing needs to be covered in actual diamonds. Something after the fact I can go, honey, you know what? I love that dress, but I'm gonna pluck every single one of those things off there and get my freaking money back. Seedplanter72 commented, not the jerk. You've been generous, but now the tribe and your bride are seeing you as a cash cow. Maybe if the elder feels this is so important, he should put up the money for the dress. The artisan isn't by any chance a close relative of theirs, is it? If this crazy demand is a deal breaker, I say cut your losses and run. They will drain you dry. OP responded saying, I should look into who the artisan is now that you mention it. I was totally hands off everything, letting the wedding planner handle it all. But I'd like to know who this person is and why it's so outrageously expensive. I just want to have all the input I can get before talking to my fiance again, since this is a touchy situation. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my family no more to monthly family dinners? Ever since my dad was a kid, our family has done monthly family dinners. Nicer ones than your average family dinner. It's something our family did when my siblings and I were kids too. We would have grandparents over and we'd all have a nicer dinner together. When my siblings and I grew up, we still did it, only instead of what happened before, where branches broke off over time and they did their own, they decided we should include partners and spouses and our kids as a whole in one. By the time I was 19, the family had decided that they would take turns hosting each month to lessen the burden. My wife was excited to be a part of them at first. We started during our relationship. I did the cooking to start and then she took over after a while because she wanted to. My family had seemingly got along with my wife before this point, but they were overly harsh of her cooking. With the exception of my 2 younger siblings, she tried to make them happy, but no dice. I told them they could be kinder. They said she should cook better or cook different things. My wife didn't make anything they don't eat, but nothing was right. She grew frustrated and I grew suspicious. So we hosted a couple of months ago and I told my wife we were going to pretend I did the cooking just to see. She told me she felt like they just weren't fond of her food. I pointed out nobody had the same amount of complaints as them, and they even criticized the steak and potatoes they all seemed to go crazy for. She went along with the plan, and when my family thought I'd cooked it, they loved it. Said it was so good my wife had decided to let a real talent take over. That it was so nice to have something a little different. Curry and all this very lovely stuff. My younger brother and sister weren't fooled, but they enjoyed watching the rest of the family dig a hole. When the rest of my family heard it was my wife's food and not mine, they tried so hard to backtrack on all the nice stuff. The rest of the dinner went in tense silence and my wife's eyes were opened. I told her I was done with these dinners and she was my priority. She felt a little bad. I told her we could have dinners with my younger brother and sister sometimes. It's less stress anyway. When we didn't show up to last month's dinner or this one, my parents and siblings started asking questions. I told them each time we weren't going again, but missing 2 made it sink in. They told me we need to be there. I said never again. My wife doesn't deserve their disrespect. I told them they ruined what they wanted by being jerks. They said I was overreacting, making very relationship-harming choices, and treating them badly for simply having issues with my wife's food. They also said to think of future kids and how they'll miss out. Some of it got to my wife a little, which I've tried to reassure her about. Am I the jerk? I'm putting myself in this situation, and I think if I were in OP's shoes, I would be looking at all of this family as utter backstabbers. These people are so weirdly slimy and two-faced, trying to put somebody down because of what bias? After literally witnessing all that happen, I would just be like, screw all of you. Think about the future kids and how they'll miss out? I'm thinking about how when the future kids miss out, they'll at least not be indoctrinated with your two-faced behavior. WebAcceptable7932 commented, not the jerk. It's pretty clear the issue isn't her food, it's her. For whatever reason, they don't seem to like her. Good for you for standing up to them. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister she isn't the type of person I want my daughters to look up to? My sister and I are complete opposite. My sister doesn't have many accomplishments, and the last thing I remember her achieving is graduating high school. At 20, she dropped out of college because she was pregnant. She moved in with the father, and for 10 years, they were a family. All that time, she didn't have a job even when her son started school. Those two never married, and he left her about 2 years ago. She's now pregnant again, new dad isn't involved, works at fast food, and barely scraps by. She is constantly asking for money. She actually wanted to move in with me and my kids. My wife travels a lot. I have 2 daughters, and my sister told me she wanted to be closer. She wanted to move into my home, that it would be good for the girls to have a woman they can look up to. She never liked that my wife travels. This isn't the first time she's brought it up, and I've turned her down politely many times. My sister brought it up again last night. I told her no. This resulted in a heated conversation with her asking why. I decided to be honest and I told her that she isn't the type of woman I want my kids to look up to. I also listed the reasons above. She called me a jerk. The family is now on my butt about this, saying I was heartless to tell her that. They also want me to apologize. Am I the jerk? I think this is one of those situations where the old adage, the truth hurts sometimes, is just true. They were asking for it, they wanted to know. OP was just ultimately honest with them. Viola Flowers commented, ultimately not the jerk. You could be polite but still firm. If she's insisting on moving in, something must be going on for her. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my parents they owe my husband a real and heartfelt apology to my husband if they ever want to be invited to anything? I, 27-year-old female, met my husband Jamie, 27-year-old male, in high school. He was the boy with a bad reputation for dumb crap, and by dumb crap I mean not stuff he did but stuff he didn't do, like going home or having an adult around him. His mom was an addict who didn't let him come home before 12 a.m. on any given night. So he would spend his time in different places, which made adults think poorly of him. By the time people realized it was because he had a crappy mother, they judged him for her actions. My parents were some of those judgmental people. They would see him out past dark and make comments. They were awful when Jamie and I started dating. I told them they considered themselves Christian and should be more understanding and welcoming of someone who didn't have a good home life. They would say he wasn't trying, like he could do anything about his mom. They judged him for not going to college. They deemed him lazy for not going even though he held a job until he was 14 and with the help of the couple he'd worked for, went to trade school. My parents were so crappy about it all that we didn't talk for a whole year. Then they reached out via my siblings to apologize to me, and they appeared to accept Jamie and realized that they had been wrong about him. Jamie always got along with my siblings, but he started to get along with my parents too, and it was nice. We got married 2 years ago, and we welcomed our first baby together in June. Last month, we had a big fight. They showed that they kept their opinions to themselves for this long, but they never saw Jamie as a good person. They always saw him as trash. And it all started because Jamie was alone with the baby for an entire day and they were horrified I trusted him to watch our child without me there. They spewed such hateful things about Jamie that aren't true. He's an amazing dad and husband. He's not his mother. He has never been in trouble with the law. So the fact they spoke about him like he was some criminal, I was so ticked. I kicked them out and told them I was done with them. We're still good with my siblings, which is where this post is taking us. We started talking Christmas and Jamie and I said we would host them. My mom was trying to get my siblings to ask me if I'd come to Christmas dinner at their house with the baby. One sibling said Jamie and I were hosting. Upon learning that, my mom took said sibling's phone and called and asked me how I could leave them uninvited. I told her if they ever want to be invited to anything again, they will truly reflect on their actions and words and make a real and heartfelt apology to Jamie. But that is the only way, and it has to be real and to him and not me. I then hung up on my mom. My parents are now claiming I'm trying to blackmail them, which I don't think they truly know what that means. And a text, I assume is from mom, accused me of being disrespectful of my parents and saying you can't demand an apology. Am I the jerk? OP's definitely not the jerk here. I think OP was absolutely right in calling out their Christianly behavior. It's presumptive, it's judgmental, and it was never fair to begin with. OP's absolutely right, and honestly, it's great that OP is not allowing their parents to steamroll them in any way on this situation. Gem Glamour and Glitter commented, not the jerk. Your parents clearly don't know their place. They claim to be Christian but don't appear to know the basic foundation of how a marriage works. When you and your spouse married, you became one. So by them insulting him, they are insulting you. It isn't their place to chime in with their baseless opinions unless you ask for their advice first. If they want to be right fighters, let them fight that war alone. Trust me, the stress and anxiety over this isn't worth it. Let them simmer a while and hopefully they'll come around. If they don't, your heart will go on. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.